The same body, in the same town, on the same afternoon, can cost you $900 or $9,000. Nothing physical changes. The difference is a box, a room, and 2 days of waiting. Look around while somebody puts the kettle on. Thick carpet, chosen because it deadens sound, a box of tissues within reach of every chair, a brochure with a sunset on the front, a table with 3 chairs on one side and one on the other, and a folder in a plastic sleeve pushed towards you. That folder is a price list. Federal law says it must be in your hands before anybody discusses anything at all. In practice, you will look at it for about as long as you look at the safety card on an airplane. And yet, this is one of the steadiest margin businesses in American retail. There are somewhere around 18,800 funeral homes in the United States. The typical one handles about 2 funerals a week in a building of 6,000 to 10,000 square feet with a fleet of black vehicles parked behind it. 2 a week. A restaurant doing 2 covers a week is boarded up by Christmas. So the carpet is a costume. What you have walked into is not really a place that sells funerals. It is a lightly used building with a license attached and a book of money that has not arrived yet, wearing grief as a disguise. Quick question before we go on, and it is a specific one. If you have sat at that table, and many of you have, did you read the folder? Or did you look across at your mother or your brother and say the 4 words that everybody says, whatever's appropriate? That is possibly the most expensive sentence in the English language. I would like to know whether you said it, and roughly what you think it cost. And the harder one, did you telephone a second funeral home? Just one, just to compare. If you did, you are genuinely unusual, and I would like to hear about it below. If the like button feels inappropriate on a video about funerals, I understand completely. It works the same as it does everywhere else. Right, back to the funeral home. Here is why this business should be a disaster. Start with the customer. There is no repeat purchase. Nobody buries their father twice. A supermarket sees you 50 times a year and can afford to lose money on your milk. This building sees your family perhaps 3 times in a century. There is no brand either, in any way that travels. Nobody in another state has heard of the name over the door. The fixed costs are brutal and mostly idle. A preparation room with stainless steel and ventilation, refrigeration, a hearse, which costs somewhere around $80,000, new and does maybe 100 trips a year, a licensed director who must answer the telephone at 3 in the morning in February and drive to a house, and demand cannot be stimulated. No sale, no promotion, no seasonal push will make anybody die. Then there is the law. Since 1984, the Federal Trade Commission's funeral rule has forced every home to publish an itemized price list, to quote prices over the telephone to a stranger, and to accept a casket bought elsewhere without charging a penny for handling it. That is a regulator standing in the showroom saying out loud that you may buy the coffin from Costco. And people are leaving. In 1960, roughly 4% of American deaths ended in cremation. Now it is above 60%, and most forecasts put it past 80% by the mid-2040s. Cremation collapses the average ticket. Now the skeptical family is real. She exists. The daughter with a spreadsheet who rang 4 homes, bought the casket online for $900, and declined embalming because nothing in law required it. She is real and she is rare, because the price was never set against her. It is set against the family who telephoned exactly 1 home, the one that buried their father in 1998, and who arrived at that table already 90% bought. Roughly 3/4 of families never compare a single price. So the question is not why the funeral costs what it costs. The question is what you are actually paying for. Let us take the bill apart. Real numbers, roughly the national medians for a burial with a viewing. The basic services fee, somewhere around $2,500. Transfer of the body from the place of death, about $350. Embalming, around $850. Cosmetics and dressing, roughly $300. Use of the building for a viewing, about $450. Use of it for the ceremony, about $550. The hearse, around $375. A second car for the family, $175. Printed cards, about $200. The metal casket, around $2,500. The concrete vault the cemetery insists on, about $1,700. That is a median of somewhere near $8,300. And when the National Funeral Directors Association publishes it every year without embarrassment, because every line on it is defensible. Now run the other column. What did any of it cost the building? The casket wholesales at somewhere between $800 and $1,200. The vault, a few hundred. Embalming fluid for one adult is a matter of tens of dollars. The chemicals are cheaper than the printed cards. The hearse is already bought and depreciating whether it moves or not. Strip out the physical goods and about $6,000 of that bill buys no object at all. So what is it buying? 2 days of exclusive use of a house that would otherwise sit empty, in the labor of 2 or 3 licensed people. Divide it the other way. A home doing 110 funerals a year with a mortgage, insurance, vehicles, and staff on call every hour of every day has to recover all of that across 110 transactions. A hotel recovers its building across 40,000 room nights. That is the whole arithmetic. You are not buying a funeral. You are renting an almost empty building at a rate set by how empty it is. So let us walk it part by part. Start at the door. The first line on every price list in America is the one you cannot refuse. The basic services fee, overhead, licensing, paperwork, the 24-hour telephone, the director's time, somewhere around $2,500, and the funeral rule specifically permits it to be non-declinable. Decline the embalming, decline the viewing, decline the flowers, choose the plainest cremation on the list. You still pay it. That fee is not the price of a funeral. It is the price of the building noticing you. Now the second room, the one down the corridor with the soft lighting, the casket showroom. There will be 8 to 12 caskets in there, and the arrangement is not accidental. The cheapest one is often in a color nobody would choose, positioned where you have to stoop. The rule requires a printed casket price list, but it does not require the cheapest model to be on the floor at all. The industry knows something about how humans buy. Present 3 options and most people take the middle one. Present 8 and almost nobody takes the first or the last. And the outside casket. You may legally bring your own from a warehouse club, from a carpenter, from the internet. The proportion of families who actually do it is small enough that most directors can count them per year. A room where the lighting is designed and the sequence is designed is not a room where you are choosing freely. Third lever, and this one survived the regulator by adapting, bundling. The funeral rule unbundled everything in 1984 so families could buy line by line. The industry responded with packages. The traditional service, the memorial service, the celebration of life, each a single price for a fixed group of items, which is the bundle rebuilt with a nicer name. Cremation gets the same treatment. Direct cremation, with no viewing and no service, can be had for under $1,000 in most American cities. Cremation with a viewing and a service runs somewhere around $6,300. Same fire, same 2,200 degrees for 2 hours. The $5,000 difference is entirely the building and the ceremony. Here is the detail I find most telling. The rental casket. A handsome hardwood shell with a removable cardboard insert used for the viewing, then withdrawn before the cremation. It rents for a few $100s a time, and a single one can serve dozens of families before it is retired. The casket you are looking at may have held 40 other people. Fourth lever, and now we step outside. The land. An acre of cemetery holds somewhere between 1,000 and 1,300 graves. Sell each plot at $3,000 and add the opening and closing fee, which is the digging. Add another 1,000 to 2,000. Add the vault. Add the marker, and then the fee for setting the marker. That is comfortably over $5 million an acre, taken from grass, and it is sold in installments to living people with no inventory sitting on a shelf. Most states then require a slice of each sale, often 10 to 15%, to go into an endowment care fund whose principal is never spent. The operator mows the lawn from the interest, forever. The grass is not the overhead, the grass is the product. Fifth lever, and this is the one nobody in that arrangement room has considered. Read the sign outside. It says a family name, probably 2 names joined by an ampersand with the founding year underneath, 1922, 1937. There is a fair chance that family sold the business decades ago. Service Corporation International, headquartered in Houston, owns roughly 1,500 funeral homes and around 500 cemeteries across North America, and it very rarely puts its own name on anything. The local name stays. The founding date stays. The letterhead stays. Behind it, one embalming facility can serve a cluster of homes, one vehicle fleet, one accounts department, one purchasing contract for caskets across 1,000 sites. What was bought was not the building. It was 100 years of a small town assuming it knows who these people are. And I want to be honest about how good this machine is. It is beautifully built. Demand is the only genuinely certain demand in the economy. Competition is local. Sentiment does the selling. and the regulator has been outmaneuvered by a photocopied package sheet. So why has it been eating itself for 30 years? Start in Mississippi. In 1995, Jeremiah O'Keefe, in his 70s, a former Marine fighter pilot, running 8 funeral homes and a small burial insurance company around Biloxi and Gulfport. Third generation, not a rich man. He had a contract dispute with the Loewen Group, the Canadian roll-up run by Ray Loewen out of British Columbia, which by then had acquired well over 1,000 funeral homes across North America. O'Keefe took them to a jury in Hinds County. His lawyer was Willie Gary. The jury came back with $500 million, $100 million in actual damages, and $400 million in punitive damages, against a company with nothing like that in ready cash. Picture the arithmetic in that room. 8 funeral homes on the coast of Mississippi, against the largest acquirer in the industry, and the number on the verdict form is $500 million. Loewen settled for around $175 million. It never recovered. Ray Loewen was gone by 1999, and in June of that year the company filed for Chapter 11 with debts reported at roughly $2 billion. It sued the United States under NAFTA and lost that too in 2003. The remains were reorganized as Alderwoods, and Service Corporation International bought them in 2006 for about $1.2 billion. The roll-up had one assumption in it: buy the local homes, keep the local names, then raise prices, because the grieving do not shop. The second support is cremation, and it is not going away. The gap between under $1,000 for a direct cremation and $8,300 for a burial is not a preference gap. It is a household finances gap. The response was to buy the disruption. SCI owns the Neptune Society, which is one of the largest direct cremation providers in the country. The company that sells the $8,000 burial also sells you the $800 alternative. And the third support, the invisible one, is what cheapness does when nobody is looking. In 2002, investigators walked the grounds of the Tri-State Crematory in Noble, Georgia. They eventually recovered 339 bodies that had never been cremated. They had been stacked in sheds and in the woods for years while families received urns of concrete dust. Ray Brent Marsh ran it. He pleaded guilty and went to prison. But the structural fact underneath is that dozens of small funeral homes had been sending bodies to a third-party crematory for a couple of $100s each, and not one of them had driven over to look. That is what a fixed-cost business does when its ticket price falls. It outsources the part the family never sees. Now, the fair version. The easy story is that these people prey on the bereaved, and there is real evidence for it. The eightfold spread on a casket, and FTC undercover sweeps that keep finding homes not handing over the price list as required. But most of these buildings are not owned by anybody rich. Roughly 85 to 90% are still privately held, many by the third generation, and the median funeral director earns somewhere around $60,000 a year for a job that includes standing in a stranger's bedroom at 4 in the morning. There is no version of that job that is cheap when you do it 100 times a year. 2 things are true. The pricing is designed around a customer who cannot negotiate, and the building genuinely does sit empty 5 days out of 7. So add it up. A house nobody visits, a room with 8 boxes in it, a fee you cannot decline, an acre of mown grass sold at $5 million, and a family name that was bought 30 years ago and never taken down. It is not a shop, it is a deposit-taking institution with a chapel attached. Because here's the part that never comes up at that table. The most valuable thing SCI owns is not its 1,500 buildings, it is the backlog. Contracts already signed, already paid for funerals that have not happened, running to somewhere around $15 billion. That money was not taken from grieving families, it was taken from healthy people, sold at kitchen tables by commissioned salespeople to a couple in their 60s who wanted to spare the children the decision, then placed in trust or in an insurance policy where it sits for 10 or 12 years on average earning. The industry's real product is not the ceremony. It is a promise, paid for in advance, redeemable on an unknown date, from which nobody can walk away, because when the date arrives the family will not be in any condition to shop. You assumed the person at the center of this business was lying in the next room. They are not the customer. They stopped being the customer years ago, at their own kitchen table, with a pen. The dead are only the delivery date.